Yeah, having worked in the justice system, Allan, I definitely seen where there's definitely lots of room for making it better, and just comprehension. The comprehension isn't out there. And like what Saul said in last week's, is we're big business. The government makes lots of money off of us in the correctional centers, in the justice system. You know, we are a commodity. But what we have to look at is, you know, delivery and ensuring that the services are available for everybody and that they're equitable and that they're inclusive. And we also need to do some, you know, this has been going on for how many years with the police service. There are lots of things, and it's like anything. You have good cops, you have bad cops. You have good store clerks, you have bad store clerks. You're always going to get a mix. And, you know, sometimes you can't fix some things, you know, like some people are just so, it's so pounded into their mind system. But I find that the general population is becoming more and more aware of the trials and tribulations. Well, the trials, there hasn't been a whole lot of tribulations, the trials that the Indigenous people in Canada have gone through. And I think that the people in Canada who really want to protect the earth and the water really look to the Indigenous people for that as well. And they see us as a saving grace. So there, you know, there are in some instances where the recognition is, but we, you know, we definitely have a lot more work to do. But I think that if we're going to have services available, that those services be provided by Indigenous people, and we have to have a different look at things. You know, some of the stuff that we've been talking about is a whole different view on child and family services. And because what's been happening for the last 100 years isn't working, and it hasn't really changed. And there's got to be a better way of doing it, that's for sure, that we can work with the families, and that it's not about apprehension, it's about helping everybody get better.
Yeah, another thing that Jim talked to us is duty to consult.
Oh, yes.
And he indicated at the time that the consultation is with the proponents, people that are the companies that are coming in. But they should be dealing with the rights-bearing people, the communities. I was just at a Zoom meeting the other day with a mine that's being established in northern Saskatchewan, and they were talking about duty to consult. But I noticed that an agreement was set up, was dealt with by Métis Nation Saskatchewan and English River. And what the person said at the meeting was that that because the agreement was signed with the head office, Métis Nation Saskatchewan, that all inquiries would go to the head office. But under Jim Sinclair's, he said, no, that is wrong, because the discussion should be with the rights-bearing people.
Right.
Not the parent organization. And I hope in the future, if we, as AMNSIS, deal with duty to consult, that we go to the communities and let the communities go with the agreements as rights-bearing people. We need to strike up the negotiation committees and at the community level Some of the duty to consult I see us dealing with is Cumberland House, for example, the Delta. There was a letter from the minister stating that that they didn't want to deal with it under AMNSIS. So it's an outstanding issue, and I think that Cumberland House Delta issue needs to be dealt with as duty to consult. Another one is the Nesbitt Forest in Prince Albert. That's another issue that we should deal with in respect to duty to consult. And when I see, for example, the mining that I talked about, the Zoom meeting they had, we should have had representatives there from AMNSIS to discuss how duty to consult impacts our communities in the northwest side, such as Isla Cross, Bopal, Buffalo Narrows, those communities. And I think we need to sit down with the mining company and strike up an agreement.
I had sent, I'm trying to remember, is it Denison Mines that's on the Wheeler River project?
That's Denison Mines.
I sent them an email and CC'd 2 individuals from that community area in the email that I said would be interested in participating in those meetings as community members, and I have yet to hear back from them. And I sent that out, I think, on Monday morning, so it'll be a week tomorrow that I sent that out, and I've not heard back.
Yeah, we need to be more assertive.
And this is why we also need to have representation in the communities, so that, okay, so in this situation, I had seen it online, and you and I had talked about it via telephone call, and you suggested that I reach out to some of the community members, and that's what I did, and they were definitely interested in participating. And so I wrote the email to the mining company, and they have yet to even acknowledge that they've received the email. So yeah, there's, this is a situation that's going to take further discussion from us as a board, and then being able to move the community forward.
If we follow our model of negotiation, next step is confrontation. We go to their office if we have to. Sorry to say that, but sometimes you have to do that. And that's how we used to work under the Association of Métis and Onstead. I could tell you stories of what we did, but I won't go into that. Another thing that Jim Sinclair talked about was self-government. He felt that today the self-government agreements that are being signed by the distinct base organizations aren't really self-government agreements. They're more self-administration. They're administrating money for and programs for the Crown relations. So in that respect, there's a difference between self-government and self-administration. He felt that we should be involved in the policy making in this country that impact our Indigenous people, policies that impact our Indigenous people, especially in the area of justice that I spoke about earlier. He also felt that we should be involved in the budget cycles and that we get the right amount of funding for us to work and develop ourselves and have funding for negotiations and development. My feeling, and that's my personal feeling, the only way self-government will work is that we need to have an Indigenous governance within a governance, a third order of government. Whether you name it, you call it Indigenous government or Aboriginal government. Right now, the city of Saskatoon, with the council, city council is not really dealing with the street people. If we had an Indigenous governance, we would deal with those issues. And to me, once we begin to deal with those real issues, then we're dealing with reconciliation. Right now, reconciliation to me is not working in this country. They're not dealing with what reconciliation says. It says truth and reconciliation. They're not dealing with the truth. The truth is 90% of our prisons are being filled by Indigenous people. That's the truth. Are they dealing with it as a government? No. A large percent of our Indigenous people have health problems. That's the truth. Are the governments of Saskatchewan and the national government really dealing with it? You take COVID-19. I haven't been given vaccination. A lot of our elders in the city of Saskatoon haven't received vaccination. If we had our own Indigenous governance, we would ensure and lobby that our people get vaccinated. It can almost be safe to say that the last people that'll get vaccination in the city of Saskatoon will be the street people. And that's sad.
So when you're talking about a third level of government, and this is something that has crossed my mind also, is for the per capita population in Saskatchewan, we should have, if there's, 120,000 off reserve, we should have that representation in the provincial government. If there's, 25,000 off reserve in Saskatoon, we should have that representation on city council. We should have a representative on city council. And that goes in all areas, because realistically, you look at our provincial and civic levels of government, and there's no Indigenous representation a majority of the time. I don't know what the numbers are. It's like anything else.
There's 2 in Saskatoon, Curtin and another guy. There's 2 Métis guys.
So, and it's the same thing with employment as well, that the numbers are never representative of what's actually in the community. And, and that's some of the stuff that we'll be talking about next week in regards to, or Thursday, in regards to occupying the field. But I like what you're saying, and that, yes, we need to proactively participate. And I guess for me, the important thing is that we as a board can't do that all ourselves. We need our community. And that's why, the biggest thing is why we're wanting community involvement, is because, we need to get the community involved, and that this is something that all of us can work together at to make things further. I'm just looking, there's another comment here. So with the existing parameters of the various Métis nations who are organized by regions such as provincial boundaries, example, Métis Nation Saskatchewan, Métis Nation of Alberta, the use of these names and jurisdictions are a recognition of conquering nation and the subjugation of the Métis. For the Métis to be a true nation, they have to take ownership of themselves. They have to use representation by traditional gathering areas or by clans. Otherwise, we will always be subjugated under the auspices of the Government of Canada and will never have true nation status.
Yeah, the best way to answer that, I think, is one of the areas we want to look at under the Association of Métis Non-Status Indians of Saskatchewan is a kinship model. Now, what should that kinship model be? Should look like? It should be based on family structure. It should be based on wakutuin. In the Cree word, it's relationship, our relatives. We should begin to put together a kinship council committee to guide the model and the transition of developing a kinship model that's inclusive and becomes collective. The kinship model will also exercise the inherent right of self-government and self-determination. We need to determine our own identity or family structures. We need to develop kingship codes. So what kind of an application process do we put forward? I don't necessarily believe in putting together a citizenship model which says if you become a citizen of the Métis Nation Saskatchewan, you're giving up all your Section 35 rights to the parent organization. I think that's completely wrong.
Yeah.
I think the family structure in the unit should decide as a kingship model how their future is determined and how they move forward as a people. So I thought I would discuss the kinship model at this time.
Well, we had touched on that briefly last week in regards to, we talked about clans. So, and, you know, back in the day, that if it weren't for the clan system, and I think that might be, you know, something to, and I guess for everybody out there listening is we have no hard and fast decision of where we're at yet for citizenship. This is something that we're reviewing, we're talking about, and how do we want it to look? And like Allan said, with the, you know, we don't want anybody having to sign away their rights to be part of our organization, but we want it to be an inclusive family organization. And Allan talked about how his family, there's Métis, non-status and treaty in his family, and it's the same thing with my family, with, you know, so the descendants of my parents. I think we have 3, 4, 5, 6 treaty. I think we're getting beat out by the treaties now. I think there's only about 8 Métis, and so, you know, our families are intermingled now, and if we want our families to all be part of the same organization, this is where AMNSIS comes back into play and working together.
Yeah.
So, and with the clan system, we were talking about in relation to voting is what we, when we had talked about the clan system, is that you know, you'd have a representative from each clan, you know, saying who they would choose or vote for or whatever, whereas now it's sometimes leaders are picked in this democratic, you know, one person, one vote. What sometimes happens is a person wins basically because they have a super huge family, you know, and so there's lots of pros and cons to look at everything, that so that it's, you know, representative and equal for all, and where we're going to go. And so we've got a lot of growing pains to work out.
You know, my friend that's sitting beside you, Robert, is the only Métis in his family. Is it right for Robert to be standing alone and not to include his family as a kinship? Even his kids can't vote for him when he runs. No, that's wrong. We have to be together as a family and a collective, and that's where the kingship model would come in. We have strength in numbers. I think that's important. I don't know if you want to say anything, Robert.
Yeah, I think I think AMNSIS has a huge opportunity right now to really reflect the next generation and what they need to do, what they need to move forward and use to help them as they grow older and well, like us old dogs. But it's just like my daughter has said, just as an example, and I've inculcated this, I guess, to a certain degree in their minds, but they're their own bosses. Is that they're talking now about why can't we have dual citizenship? Why is it that why do the organizations all have to be distinction-based organizations when we're all related? And I agree with them. In the old days, Allan, I'm sure you could elaborate to this more than I could. But as I understand it, whenever there was families, they were represented by their elders or whomever the families decided. They decided were going to represent their interests. We don't have that now today, and that's part of the problem. You know, we have these, and I'm not against elected officials. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes you get oh, I'll just use an example, and this is no slight to anybody, it's just an observation. That Primrose Lake bombing range agreement, supposed agreement, that created this economic development authority in northern Saskatchewan, it has done nothing for the families such as yours and mine and others that were kicked out of that Primrose Lake bombing range. Yet, as we speak, the Birch River Dene Nation are talking about individual compensation for those families that were kicked out of the bombing range. I've just learned that. Canoe Lake has received individual compensation. Everybody, it seems, even non-Indigenous people, when they kick these non-Indigenous fishermen and people out in the 50s, Allan, from all I've read, they all got huge compensation, but not the Métis and not the non-status. And so, you know, that's an outstanding issue that we need to deal with. But by being there for our families and for our kids, and to really build an organization that reflects the 21st century, because I don't think we really see that right now. We see these organizations crawling back into their race-based distinction sort of things that we've always thought we think we are. And here's an example. The map of the Métis National Council and what it thinks Métis people are is an prime example of that. I'm wondering if people know that, for example, that in Kansas, people know that there is a half-breed reserve that was set aside for half-breed people alone in Kansas. The first Métis script given out in North America was the Lake Superior Métis script process in around the Great Lakes. That whole Métis script process came from the United States. And when you look at the roles of people that got those Métis scripts, Allan, your names, Morin's were on there. You would think that when you read all of those, you would see that it's all Métis and half-breed names that now presently live in Canada and lived in the United States. So I would just say this, that AMNSIS can be the lead organization that pulls our families back together again. That's why I joined. And that's why I believe in this. And of course, with not to blow smoke anywhere, Allan. It's because great leaders like you, I follow you. You're our leader, along with Charlene, our president. You've been in the trenches, and I have a lot of respect for you. And a lot of those people that are on the line right now, we owe you a debt of gratitude, brother, for all of the things that and Saul Sanderson and others that have come before us. And so it's just like my daughters. I said to them, maybe you can't walk in my moccasins, but maybe you can walk along our path that we've made. So, you know, AMNSIS has a huge chasm to fill. But I hope that everybody that's listening in today is up to the challenge to work together again as a family rather than as what our colonizers think we should be. So I know I've said a lot, but I really haven't said much. But I want to thank you, Madam President, for allowing me to speak.
And just to conclude, because I think we only got about 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
The Daniels case is a very slow process. It's not really moving the way it should. Process is really slow when it comes to, dealing with the Daniels case. There's a lack of core funding in this country for members, CAP members in the West. We don't have no core funding as AMNSIS, for example.
Yeah.
We lack resources for us to negotiate properly on the issues of the Daniels case. I'm just concerned about the slow progress of the Daniels case. Why is it a slow process? It's a case that we won. It's a ruling that came down in the highest court of the law. We should be asserting our rights as a people. We should be moving forward. We should be moving mountains. That's my view. And the sooner we do that, the better. In conclusion, I had asked for why I felt that we are an alternative as an organization. But I gave some of my reasons why I felt that AMNSIS should be an alternative in this province. So I'm asking you, the participants and the people, to give us some alternatives that we could look at, some directive, some guidance, so that we can begin to address those issues. Because I think as AMNSIS, it's good to have a bottom-up approach where the people have a say, not the parent organization.
Yeah, that's right.
Not to be top-heavy. And the alternatives has to come from the people. Because I think that's important that I say that as we end this discussion. Because I could say a few more things, but I'll leave it at that at the moment. So I'm asking you as participants and as people to give us some of your alternatives that you feel that we should address. Go ahead, Charlie.
Robert's just going like this at me because I'm coughing.
COVID. I just wanted to add one thing, just to add credence to what Allan's saying. That current 60 Scoop case, Allan, is largely based on the Daniels decision too. Our case is revolving around that, to push that forward, our rights. So you're exactly right. We need to push these battles based on the Daniels decision and keep expanding it. You're right. So thank you, Madam President.
Yeah, and let's not. There is a, and we've brought this up every show. There is a war going on in the East in regards to whether or not there are Métis in the East, because and there's a whole discussion on social media about all of this, and it's actually very violent, and it's
sad.
It's horrible. So anyways, and what the goal of the whole discussion is to cull all the Métis in the East, and of course I always think everything's a government conspiracy, but because the Daniels case says that Métis are under in the Constitution and that they're a federal responsibility, Métis and non-status, so they're trying to eliminate them, and please don't. I don't believe that. I don't agree with it. We all, we know where we come from. We didn't all of a sudden just become Métis in the Red River. So, there's other things that are going on out there. There's political motivations, and we just need to keep all that stuff in mind, that all this stuff goes on and there's a motivation for it. And if we, stay united, because what is that whole movement doing? Well, it's trying to, everybody's weighing in on opinion about whether or not there's, getting rid of a whole group of people. I don't think it's up to me to decide. I think it's up to the people in those communities to decide. And I don't think it's for social media to decide. It's for those communities to weigh in on and have that discussion. So again, I think that's part of the government's divide and conquer philosophy. So keep those things in mind. Always be skeptical of what you read. Do your own research and be investigative. As far as AMNSIS goes, I can't reiterate enough how we, the big thing for us is community involvement and getting our community involved. I miss the old gatherings and everybody sitting around and the kids being part of the gatherings and just being together and being ourselves and being Indigenous. And I miss all that stuff. And I miss it really a lot right now with COVID going on. So, those are the kind of things that I want to bring back. I just want to be comfortable being who we are, and I want to celebrate who we are without all the fighting and just working together. I'm serious. It's a government's biggest fear. 1885 scared the shit out of them. If all the Indigenous people had gotten together in 1885, this country might be a lot different. So they've been working to keep us apart ever since. Sorry, I'm done now.
So with that, I'll quickly say a closing prayer, and then you can make your closing remarks, Chair. I just want to ananas ko mono tawai na minapia wa paktista moya pia takta pix kwatituya pia takta imurta magahkyogi vega pagamskagoya no tawi yawa maginta tama iguik si watsi no tawi na iguik si watsi temaginauna guitamana Mwenye nampong guitamanan so asam sina naging wakumagan na nagakyo guitama gusto. Iwan tawi ka guitimtim. Tapat pista moya. Kapniuk muhtian mis kanamna. Istak tapah tamat nigan mis kanamna. Iwas si papiahtak. Tanpaya. Tapuatama. Akyo guitam yupay kinanangitsi. Hey.
Oh, a big shout out to Rock Matt.
Thank you, Allan. Selena, you had a piece of paper there with all the websites and stuff on it?